guys, welcome back to another episode of Marlins IX. As always, I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. Today is March 17th. It's a Sunday edition of the podcast, and it's also St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patty's Day out there to all y'all. Hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. And we're going to get right into the episode. Some really bad news coming out of spring training camp as we're quickly approaching opening day. Opening day series against the Pirates begins March 28th, and not this week, but it's the following week. Unfortunately, the Marlins starting rotation now, all of a sudden, really, is being devastated by injuries. The latest news coming out of Marlins camp, Eury Perez, baby goat, expected to have a super strong season, is shut down for the moment with elbow soreness. We don't know how long he's going to be shut down, but kind of the news is that in addition to the nail injury, after his last start, he said his elbow is feeling sore. Obviously, Tommy John surgery is the first thing that comes to mind. The Marlins are going to do, everything in their capability to make sure that they diagnose the issue to figure out if there is any structural damage and any steps they need to take forward. But for the moment being, it looks like Eury Perez will not be in the rotation come opening day. So he is going to go meet with a surgeon. It's actually the same surgeon that performed Tommy John surgery on Sandy Alcantara. So the organization clearly believes in his expertise. And, over the next few days, we're just going to have to wait and see what the next piece of news is. How serious is this injury? Is this soreness from Eury Perez? And the dreaded words Tommy John, that's kind of in the back of everyone's mind right now. It's in the back of my mind. You hope it's nothing serious, but right now you're in the waiting stage. There's nothing we can do except wait. Just wait and see. But the Marlins have, in just 2 weeks, they have a series to start. They have opening day. The games matter. It's go time. It's a regular season. And it's devastating for the rotation. It's devastating for the organization if Eury Perez does end up requiring a serious procedure on the elbow. But we're not going to speculate anymore on that. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the rotation and just kind of take a look at the injuries that are mounting up, kind of run through them really quick, and then go back and see who and what the Marlins are going to do and to kind of patch together and fix this rotation up as we head into the regular season. So as Eury Perez goes down for the moment, there's a couple other guys that are working their way back from injury that are expected to miss the beginning of the season. Number one is Braxton Garrett. Braxton Garrett kind of missed a lot of spring training, all of spring training with that shoulder injury. He's getting back throwing. He's through live BP. Saw a tweet earlier, Jazz Chisholm saying his slider, his breaking ball looked really good. So that's an awesome sign for Marlins fans that Braxton Garrett is working his way back from shoulder injury, but he's not going to be in the starting rotation. So again, there's still going to have to be spots that will be filled up at least at the beginning of the year. Edward Cabrera is resuming throwing, but again, shoulder injury, something he struggled with last year. We don't know exactly how long the recovery time, how long he's going to be out for. You hope there's no more setbacks. You hope he's quickly back in the Marlins rotation, but we just don't know at the moment. There really hasn't been a timetable released to the fans to kind of gauge where the Marlins rotation will stand in the coming months. But right now, it certainly looks like Edward Cabrera is going to be out at least for the first part of the season, that first week. Who knows further beyond that? Because I certainly don't. So Braxton Garrett, Edward Cabrera, they are on the road to recovery. It looks like Braxton is a little bit closer than Edward is, but you have Brax, you have Eddie, and now Eury, three of your pitchers that were expected to be in the starting rotation during opening day, and they're out. They're injured. So where do you go from here? Where do you go from here as these rotation injuries continue to mount? The Marlins have options. The Marlins do have options. First off, we're going to talk about the top end of the rotation. Who is the number one? Because Sandy is out for the season, Tommy John surgery. That was known for months, wasn't going to factor into 2024 on the mound. So sliding into that ace role is Jesus Luzardo. And I really believe that given the injuries behind him in the rotation, given the injuries to Brax and to Cabrera and now Eury, who is one of the most talented starters in all of baseball, I believe Luzardo has to really step up and carry this rotation in 2024. Not just on the field, not just on the mound, but as a leader among the guys. He's the ace now. Sandy is not out there. Eury is not out there. Jesus is out there on the mound. He's going to be taking the ball opening day, South Florida native, and he's got to go out there and just perform. He's got to rock it now. He's got to come out and establish himself as a high-end, top-of-the-line starter in Major League Baseball. The Marlins need him. The Marlins need him. He's got to have that huge season after 2023. 2023 was his breakout season, where he really finally tapped into that potential that Mel Stottlemyre brought out of him. And now this is his second full season where he can just let loose. And he's going to be the dog for the Marlins staff. He is that ace. And the organization, the team, needs it more than ever. I'm predicting Jesus Luzardo to have a really good season. I think he has the potential in 2024 to be an all-star. I think he can get Cy Young votes. I think he's that good. And now they need him. The team needs him more than ever. Going behind him, though, where do you go from here? The number two starter was supposed to be Eury. The number 3 starter was probably going to be Braxton. And then number 4, it looked more like Edward Cabrera. Number 5, possibly AJ Puck. But any combination of those, now you're subtracting Cabrera, you're subtracting Braxton Garrett, and you're subtracting Eury Perez. So 3 of those spots need to be filled. So where are your options? The 2 guys I'm going to bring up today, Ryan Weathers and Trevor Rogers. Ryan Weathers and Trevor Rogers, 2 young left-handed pitchers that have really kind of battled through different types of adversity to start their major league career. Ryan Weathers and Trevor Rogers, both drafted in the first round, both highly regarded prospects coming through the minors. And when Trevor Rogers, finally breaks into the major leagues, he finishes second in rookie of the year voting, and you're expecting him to be a linchpin in this rotation for years to come, and he couldn't stay on the mound. He couldn't stay healthy. Ryan Weathers starts his career in San Diego. All the talent in the world. There's nothing. Both of them have really good stuff. First off, let me say, their stuff is phenomenal. But Weathers reminded me a lot of early Jesus Luzardo. has not been able to put it together yet in a major league rotation, on a major league team. Really struggled last year, was traded from San Diego to Miami in the Garrett Cooper deal, and all of a sudden, he has a full season under Mel Stottlemyre. His spring training has been phenomenal. His last start, he struggled a little bit, but before that, was absolutely dominant. And now Weathers and Rogers, these left-handers, have a chance to go out and reclaim their major league career, to reestablish themselves in the baseball scene. And they need to. This team needs them to. If the Marlins are going to be successful, if they have any chance of competing in 2024, with the injury to Eury Perez, with the injuries at the beginning of the season to Braxton Garrett and Edward Cabrera, and obviously, it goes without saying, the fact that Sandy is not out there for the whole year. Ryan Weathers and Trevor Rogers, this is a make or break year for their careers, and it's make or break for the Marlins. The Marlins need production from these two. They can't be slumping. They can't be slumping early on. They have to go out. They have to attack. They have to go deep into games. This isn't spring training anymore when the real games hit. When the real games hit, this matters. And before you know it, come Memorial Day, you can be out of it. You can be completely out of the race. As a Marlins fan, I've seen that time and time again. It sucks. But for the Marlins to compete, Trevor Rogers, Ryan Weathers, you need both of them to just dominate, to have really good seasons. Because I don't think externally, outside the organization, teams are looking at the Marlins right now and saying, oh, this rotation with Ryan Weathers, Trevor Rogers, we know for certain these guys suck. Or I don't think they're saying we know for certain these guys are absolute studs. There's a sense of we don't know. We don't know. We don't know how Ryan Weathers and Trevor Rogers are going to perform. They haven't pitched a ton in 2023. They're both young guys, but they're needed, and they're needed in a big way. Other options. Brian Hoeing. Brian Hoeing is a guy at the beginning of the season I would expect to see a role for him. Brian Hoeing is much like Dan Castano, and really a lot like Braxton Garrett was at the beginning of his career, where he can come in and spot start. Dan Castano was a guy when the Marlins started getting sabotaged by injuries, especially as the summer war continued on. Dan Castano could come in and start. Brian Hoeing has proved that he can be that type of guy too. Hoeing, he's not the most spectacular guy, never a top prospect, but he's come in and he's proven that he can pitch at the major league level. He's a big, tall guy, right-handed pitcher, and he's had some success. He started 7 games last season. The rest of the appearances were out of the bullpen, but he's proven that he can come in when needed and start baseball games. This season, only pitched out of the bullpen in spring training, which is fine. But if needed, Brian Hoeing is a name to watch for in the rotation. If guys like Eddie Cabrera, if guys like Braxton Garrett have any setbacks, I expect Hoeing to come in and give the Marlins some valuable innings. AJ Puk. AJ Puk is going to be in the rotation at the start of the season. He's never started a game. In the major leagues. Now, in college, at the University of Florida, he was a starting pitcher. When he was drafted, Oakland Athletics, their intent was for him to develop as a starter. His last start was 2021 in AAA. So the A's converted him into a bullpen piece, was sent over to Miami in the J.J. Bleday deal. Started the year last season. Started off strong. Um, Ended up being the closer before giving way ultimately to Tanner Scott. He started having troubles in the ninth inning. But overall, I think A.J. Puck had a really solid season for the Marlins coming out of the bullpen. Well, now, this entire spring training, they have reconverted him into a starter. So going into opening day, A.J. Puck is going to be a starter in the Marlins rotation. He's really worked on pitching deeper into games this spring, built up, I believe, until 5 innings, pitched through 5. So a guy that really his whole life up until a few years ago, just 3 years ago, was a starter. He's now going back and stepping into that rotation for the Marlins. He's going to be huge for this team. It's a bit of a mystery to see how he is going to pitch at the major league level out of the rotation, because we've never really seen it. He's never started a game. You can look at the minor league numbers, you could look at the stuff, and the stuff is there. My question is durability. Will AJ be strong enough physically to last 5, 6, 7 innings over the course of a season? But this experiment I support. I support 100%. AJ coming out of starting rotation, fascinating story, and exciting to see how that plays out. Max Meyer in AAA. Max Meyer is somebody that the Marlins undoubtedly will have a role for, but as the injuries continue to mount, now you're going to say, what is his role going to be, and will we see him up here sooner rather than later? Former first-round pick, top prospect, Max Meyer off Tommy John surgery, but certainly he has that starter mentality. He's got that dog on the mound ready to go. A lot of people talked about him becoming a closer just off the stuff alone. Well, the Marlins might need him sooner rather than later in the rotation. So right now, as it turns up, the way I look at the rotation is, number one, you have Jesus Luzardo. And we pray to God that he doesn't get hurt. We really pray that doesn't happen, because this thing is getting weak. This rotation is, the foundation's starting to weaken a little bit, but I think we're okay for right now, even with all these injuries. Jesus Luzardo, number one. Behind him, you have Trevor Rogers, and this is no particular order, Trevor Rogers, Ryan Weathers, and A.J. Puck. That will be 4, 1 through 4. Eury Perez, Edward Cabrera, and Braxton Garrett are out. So if you have Luzardo, Weathers, Rogers, Puck, all lefties, by the way, all lefties, then you're going to have a 5th guy until you hope Garrett or Cabrera come back. I'm looking at it right now. My guess would be Brian Hoeing. At the beginning of the season, a combination of Hoeing and bullpen guys and bullpen games. And Max Meyer is sitting in AAA, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Marlins utilize him, because the Marlins want to compete. They want to compete. Internally, they believe they can compete. And even with all these injuries, guys, I think this team can compete. Again, Cabrera and Garrett are not out for the season. Eury Perez not necessarily will be out for the season. We don't know the severity of his injury. Again, we don't know yet. I'm sure we're going to find out more in the coming days, but for right now, we don't know. Cabrera and Garrett should be coming back, which will be huge. But in the meantime, as we're heading into the Pirates series, you're going to need all these lefties to have big games, to step up and really help this team out. Not what I would have expected a the beginning of the season to look like. Anytime a player gets hurt, it sucks, especially a guy with the talent and the caliber of pitcher as Eury Perez for a team that wants to compete. It's a big blow. I get that, but not all is lost. We're gonna quickly look over the veteran pitching options just to see. I'm gonna give you my opinion. I don't think the Marlins should go after a veteran pitching option. I think for the time being, while you wait for Garrett and Cabrera to get back into the rotation, and you wait for the news on Eury Perez, I don't think you go out and target another veteran pitcher, especially at a high salary. Again, there's you look at the paper and you look at Blake Snell. That's not going to happen. You look at the cheaper options, Mike Clevenger, Michael Lorenzen, and I don't know how much more effective those guys would be than a bullpen game or than AJ Puck or a combination of Brian Hoeing, and I don't know how much more effective, how much they move the needle in terms of winning games. I don't think Mike Clevenger or Michael Lorenzen, those cheaper back end options, are really going to. I don't think they affect the Marlins as much as people think they do. The Marlins do have depth, and this depth is coming into play. This is where your depth is thrown into the fire, and we're going to see how the Marlins and their pitching staff react. How are the Marlins going to handle this? Because you have the depth internally, I think they're going to stick by that. So, really unfortunate news the last 24 hours. You hate to have to talk about this because you hate to speculate injuries, but we're all thinking elbow injuries. It's not a place you want to be in. So we hope and we pray that there's nothing wrong with Eury moving forward, but time will tell. This is going to do it for Marlins 9. Really quick before I go today, just want to remind all the listeners out there, the YouTube channel is up, Marlins 9. It's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a fun season making content, recording the podcast. I have YouTube Shorts, working on that. It's fun. It's a fun project to do. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeremiah Geiger 2. So there's that. And if you like the podcast, if you know Marlins fans, let them know. Let them know. Subscribe, follow it, share it with baseball fans, guys. And as always, let's go fish.